Ravi walked slowly down the narrow street, carrying a small bag in his hand. The day had been long, filled with endless work and noise from the city. His body was tired, but his heart felt lighter when he thought about what he was about to do. Every evening, he saved a part of his dinner and brought it to the same quiet alley where stray animals gathered. It had become his habit, something that gave him a sense of peace in a world that often felt cold. The night air was cool, carrying with it the smell of dust and faint smoke from food stalls. Street lights flickered weakly above, and most people had already gone home. Ravi liked this time of day. It was quiet, and he could hear his own footsteps echo on the ground. He turned into the alley, his eyes scanning the shadows for familiar movement. Usually, a few cats or dogs would come running when they smelled food. He imagined them waiting with hopeful eyes, and he smiled softly. He placed the bag on the ground and carefully opened it. Inside were small pieces of bread and some rice with vegetables. He crouched low, spreading the food on a clean piece of paper so the animals could eat more easily. He then stepped back a little, waiting for the usual sound of paws and claws against the pavement. For a moment there was only silence. Ravi frowned and looked around. Something felt unusual tonight. A soft rustle came from behind. He turned quickly, expecting a dog or perhaps a large cat. Instead, what he saw made him freeze in place. Standing a few steps away were three figures, small and thin, with wide eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light. They were not animals, and they were not like any humans he had ever seen. Their skin was pale with a faint shimmer, and their clothes looked torn, as if they had been worn for too many days. The three figures were clearly girls, young in appearance, though their faces carried the weight of suffering. Ravi's heart raced. His mind shouted at him to run, yet his feet would not move. The girls stared at the food he had placed on the ground, their eyes filled not with anger or threat but with hunger. They did not speak. Their breathing was heavy, and their hands trembled slightly as they clutched at each other's arms, as if afraid to take a step forward. The silence stretched on, heavy and strange. Ravi slowly lifted his hands, palms open, showing he meant no harm. He remembered how he would calm stray animals, speaking gently and moving carefully. He did the same now. His voice was soft, almost a whisper, though his chest felt tight with fear. "It is food," he said. "If you are hungry, you can eat." The three girls exchanged quick glances with each other. Then the one standing in the middle took a small step forward. Her movements were cautious, like a bird testing the ground before landing. She pointed at the food, then looked back at Ravi with questioning eyes. He nodded slowly, keeping his posture calm. The girl hesitated no longer. She moved forward, knelt down, and picked up a small piece of bread. She smelled it first, then took a bite. A low sound escaped her lips, not quite a word but filled with relief. The other two girls quickly followed, kneeling beside her and reaching for the rice and bread. They ate quickly but not greedily, sharing the pieces with each other as if afraid the food might disappear. Ravi watched in silence, his fear slowly melting into something else. Pity. Compassion. Whoever these beings were, they were hungry, weak, and frightened. Their clothes were ragged, their hair tangled, their faces thin. They looked less like creatures from another world and more like lost children who had suffered greatly. As they ate, Ravi noticed strange markings on their arms, faint lines that seemed too neat to be natural. He wondered if they were wounds or scars, but he did not dare ask. They did not look up at him much, only focusing on the food, though sometimes one of them would glance at him quickly as if checking to see if he was still there. When the food was gone, the three girls leaned back, breathing more calmly now. For the first time, the one in the middle raised her head fully and looked directly at Ravi. Her eyes were large and bright, filled with something more than hunger. Gratitude. She touched her chest lightly, then pointed at him. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but no words came out. Only a soft sound, broken and uncertain. Ravi felt a strange warmth in his chest. He did not understand who they were or why they were here, but he understood the message in their eyes. They were thanking him. He nodded gently, his lips forming a small smile. "You are welcome," he said softly, not knowing if they understood the words but hoping they could feel the meaning. The girls stayed for only a short while longer. Then, with slow movements, they stood and backed away into the shadows. They did not run, but they kept watching him until their glowing eyes disappeared into the darkness of the alley. Ravi stood frozen, his mind filled with questions that had no answers. What had he just witnessed? Who were they and why did they look so lost and broken? He remained there for some time, staring into the dark where they had vanished. The alley was silent again, as if nothing unusual had happened. Yet Ravi knew the world had just changed for him. He had come here to feed stray animals, and instead he had fed three strange girls who were not from this earth. His heart was still beating fast, but beneath the fear was a strange determination. He could not ignore them. Something told him this was only the beginning. Ravi finally turned and walked slowly back to his home. The night air felt colder now, and the street lights flickered above him as if sharing his unease. But deep inside, his thoughts returned again and again to those three hungry faces and the silent plea in their eyes. He did not know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing clearly. He would come back to this alley. The next evening, Ravi walked toward the same alley with a mixture of curiosity and nervousness. His mind replayed the image of the three glowing-eyed girls. He could not forget how fragile and hungry they looked. He did not know what they were or where they had come from, but he felt an urgent need to help them. This was no longer about feeding stray animals, it was about saving lives. The city was quieter than usual. Most people had returned to their homes, and only a few cars passed along the distant streets. Ravi carried a slightly larger bag of food than yesterday. It contained pieces of bread, rice, and some cooked vegetables he had saved from his dinner. As he entered the alley, he noticed the faint sound of movement ahead. His heart skipped a beat. Could it be them again? He crouched slightly behind a corner, watching. Three figures stepped into the faint light of a street lamp. The girls looked exactly as they had the night before. Their hair hung in uneven strands, their clothes torn, and their glowing eyes wide with caution. They froze when they saw him, clearly uncertain whether to approach or flee. Ravi raised his hands slowly, palms facing outward, showing he meant no harm. He spoke softly, "It is food. You do not need to be afraid." The girls tilted their heads, staring at him as if trying to understand the strange sounds he was making. For a long moment, none of them moved. Then, the smallest girl, who had stayed at the back yesterday, took a cautious step forward. She sniffed the air near the food bag, then glanced at Ravi. Her eyes shone with a mix of fear and hope. Ravi smiled gently. "It is okay. You can eat." This time, the girls moved more confidently. They approached the food slowly, crouching down in the same careful way as before. The middle girl grabbed a piece of bread and tasted it. Her eyes widened in surprise, and she looked at Ravi as if saying thank you without words. The girl on the right picked up some rice and ate carefully, while the smallest girl hesitated, her hands shaking slightly before she took a bite. As they ate, Ravi noticed small details he had not seen before. Their eyes were unusual, larger than human eyes, with a soft glow that pulsed faintly in the dim light. Their skin had a slight shimmer, like a faint reflection of starlight. Their fingers were long and delicate, perfect for gentle movements. Despite their fragile appearance, Ravi sensed a hidden strength in them, a quiet resilience that had kept them alive in a harsh world. When the food was almost gone, Ravi sat down on a nearby crate. He wanted to show them that he was not a threat. The girls finished their meal and leaned back, breathing more steadily now. The middle girl slowly raised her hand and pointed to her chest. Then she pointed at Ravi and repeated the gesture. Ravi realized they were trying to communicate gratitude. He nodded and whispered, "You are welcome. You are safe here." The smallest girl, who had been quiet the entire time, finally spoke a word. It was soft and broken, like a whisper carried by the wind. "Who, man?" Ravi's eyes widened. She had spoken a word he could understand. He smiled. "Yes. I am a human," he said. "I will not hurt you." The girls exchanged quick glances. Then, the one on the right slowly moved closer to Ravi, her eyes studying him carefully. She pointed at the bag and then at herself. Ravi understood immediately. She was asking if there would be more food. He nodded. "Yes. Tomorrow, I will bring more." A small wave of relief passed over the girls' faces. They seemed to relax, as if realizing that this human meant no harm. Ravi noticed that they were extremely cautious, moving slowly and observing everything around them. It was clear they had learned to survive by being careful and avoiding danger at all costs. Ravi's curiosity grew stronger. He wanted to know more about them. He reached slowly into his pocket and pulled out a small notebook and a pen. He wrote a simple word, "Name." Then he showed it to the girls. The middle one looked at it and touched her chest again, then pointed to herself. Ravi nodded. He wrote another word, "Hungry." She nodded, a small smile forming on her face. It was a slow process, but he felt a connection forming. As he wrote, he noticed how intelligent they were. Their eyes followed his every movement, not with fear this time, but with interest. They studied the shapes he made, the way he moved, the gestures he used. It was clear they were learning quickly, trying to understand this strange world and the human who had shown them kindness. Suddenly, a loud sound echoed from the other end of the alley. A trash can fell over with a metallic clang. The girls froze, their bodies stiff with fear. Ravi quickly stood, placing himself between them and the sound. "It's okay. It is nothing," he said calmly. The girls watched him closely, their glowing eyes wide with alertness. Slowly, they relaxed again. Ravi realized that fear had been a constant companion for them. Their hunger was only one problem. The world itself had been dangerous, full of threats they had learned to avoid. He understood why they had been cautious, why they had not run at first, and why they had shared the food so carefully. He felt a deep respect for their survival instincts. After some time, the girls moved closer to Ravi. They no longer crouched or trembled. They seemed willing to trust him, at least a little. Ravi spoke softly, "You can stay here for a while. I will come back tomorrow with more food. You are safe with me." The girls looked at each other and then back at Ravi. The middle one gave a small nod. The one on the right touched the smallest girl's shoulder gently, as if giving reassurance. Ravi could see the silent communication between them. They were close, relying on each other for strength. It reminded him of how humans form bonds in times of struggle. When it was time to leave, Ravi slowly stood and backed away. The girls did not follow him, but they did not disappear into the shadows either. They stayed where they were, watching him leave. Ravi felt a mix of relief and curiosity. He did not know what would happen tomorrow, but he knew one thing. He had made a difference. The first step in helping these strange and wonderful beings had been taken, and it was a step that could change everything. As he walked back home, Ravi's mind raced with questions. Who were these girls? What had brought them to this place? Why were they so hungry and alone? But among all these questions, one thought stayed clear. He would return. He would bring food again. He would do whatever he could to help them survive. For the first time, Ravi felt that his simple act of leaving leftovers for stray animals had turned into something much greater. It was not only about kindness to creatures that needed food. It was about compassion, trust, and humanity reaching out to beings from another world. And that thought made his heart beat with quiet joy and hope. The next morning, Ravi sat at his small wooden table, staring at the leftover food he had saved for the alley. His mind was restless. The image of the three alien girls with glowing eyes haunted him. He replayed every detail in his memory: the way they had cautiously approached the food, the careful way they ate, and the silent gratitude in their eyes. He could not forget them, and he realized he wanted to do more than just leave scraps for them. Ravi's home was small but clean. The walls were lined with books and small plants. On the table, he spread the rice and bread, thinking about how he could bring it to them safely. He paused for a moment. What if someone saw him helping unknown creatures? What if they were dangerous? Fear crept into his mind. Yet the memory of their thin, tired faces overcame that fear. He knew he could not ignore them. By evening, Ravi prepared a larger bag. He added a few pieces of fruit and some water in small bottles. The city lights flickered as he walked toward the alley. His heart beat faster than usual, and his steps were careful. When he arrived, he scanned the shadows, unsure if they would even be there tonight. To his relief, the three girls appeared almost immediately. Their glowing eyes widened when they saw him carrying the bag. They stepped forward cautiously, keeping a small distance between themselves. Ravi knelt down and placed the bag on the ground. He gestured for them to eat first, using slow, gentle movements. The middle girl came forward and tasted a piece of bread. Her eyes brightened with a soft glow. The smallest girl stepped next, her hands shaking slightly as she picked up some rice. Ravi watched quietly, a feeling of warmth spreading in his chest. He realized that this small act of kindness was building trust, and trust was something these girls had not experienced for a long time. When the girls had finished eating, Ravi sat on the edge of the alley and watched them closely. He wanted to understand more about them, but he knew he had to be careful. Speaking directly to them was difficult because they did not know his language. Still, he wanted to communicate. He reached into his bag and pulled out his small notebook and pen. He wrote slowly, "Who are you?" Then he held it up for them to see. The girls looked at each other, confused. Then the middle one touched her chest, pointed at herself, and made a soft sound. Ravi nodded. He wrote another word, "hungry." She nodded, showing that they were still in need. Ravi smiled gently. He wanted to learn their language, but he also wanted them to learn his. Slowly, he began to point to objects, saying the words aloud, repeating them until the girls imitated the sounds. The process was slow, but each small success filled Ravi with hope. He realized that this was not just about food, it was about communication and understanding. As the night deepened, Ravi noticed that the girls were watching the alley carefully. Their movements were quiet and alert, as if they feared someone might appear at any moment. He understood. They had survived in a dangerous world by being careful and alert. They were not reckless. Every action they took had a purpose. Ravi felt admiration for their courage. Suddenly, a loud noise came from a nearby street. A metal sign swung violently in the wind, clanging against a pole. The girls jumped back instinctively. Ravi stood up and raised his hands to calm them. "It is okay. It is only the wind," he said gently. Their glowing eyes followed him closely, studying his every move. Slowly, they relaxed again. Ravi realized that fear had been a constant part of their lives. Hunger was not their only problem, the world itself was dangerous. They had survived by avoiding humans and staying in shadows. Yet here they were, trusting him just enough to take food from his hands. Ravi felt a deep sense of responsibility. He could not abandon them. He spent the rest of the night thinking about what he could do. He could not take them into his home, it was too small, and what would he tell neighbors if they noticed? He could not leave them in the alley, exposed to dangers of the city. He needed a solution that was safe for both them and himself. The girls sat quietly, watching him as if they understood his thoughts. The middle girl slowly moved closer and pointed to the street, then back at him. Ravi guessed she was asking if he had a plan. He smiled softly and shook his head. He would figure it out. For now, the important thing was that they were fed and safe. Ravi decided to come back each evening, bringing food and water. He would also try to teach them simple words so they could communicate more easily. Over time, he hoped to gain their trust completely. He realized that small acts of care could lead to a much greater connection. He wanted to be their friend, someone they could rely on in a world that had not been kind to them. As the night went on, Ravi noticed something strange. The girls sometimes looked upward, toward the distant sky. Their eyes glowed slightly brighter in those moments. It was as if they remembered a place far away, a world they longed to return to. Ravi felt a pang of sympathy. He did not know what they had lost or what dangers they had faced, but he understood longing and hope. Before leaving the alley, Ravi knelt and placed a hand gently near the smallest girl's shoulder. She flinched slightly but did not move away. He whispered, "Tomorrow, I will bring more. You are safe with me." The girls looked at each other, then at him, and gave a small nod. It was a silent agreement, a promise between them and this human who had chosen to care. Ravi walked back home under the city lights, feeling both tired and determined. He realized that this was only the beginning. Helping them was not a simple act anymore, it was a responsibility. Yet, he did not feel burdened. He felt alive in a way he had not in years. He knew that small acts of kindness could grow into something much larger, something that could change lives. When Ravi reached his home, he prepared a small notebook page with the words safe, food, and friend. He planned to show it to them tomorrow. He wanted them to feel welcome, to understand that he was not a threat, and that they could trust him more each day. As he lay in bed that night, his mind replayed the glowing eyes of the girls and their cautious but hopeful movements. He felt a quiet joy knowing that tomorrow he would see them again. Ravi's decision was clear. He would continue helping them. He would not leave them alone in the alley. Small as his actions might seem, he knew that they could make a difference. By being patient, gentle, and trustworthy, he could offer these three girls something they had not known in a long time: safety, kindness, and a sense of hope. For the first time, Ravi understood that his life had changed. What began as feeding stray animals had turned into something far greater. The alley had become a place of connection, a meeting point between worlds, and a place where compassion could grow. Ravi felt a strong sense of purpose. He would protect these girls and show them that humans could be good, caring, and trustworthy. As he drifted into sleep, Ravi's last thought was of the girl's glowing eyes, watching him in the dark alley. He smiled quietly. He had made a decision, and he knew he would keep it. No matter what challenges came next, he would return tomorrow, bringing food, hope, and friendship. The next evening, Ravi returned to the alley with a bag full of food, a few bottles of water, and some simple clothes he had brought from home. The three girls were waiting, their glowing eyes scanning the alley carefully before settling on him. Ravi knelt down and placed the food on the ground, just as he had done the previous nights. The girls approached cautiously but with a little more confidence this time. Their eyes held curiosity as well as hunger. After they had eaten, Ravi sat back on his heels and watched them quietly. He wanted to understand more about who they were. He picked up his notebook and pen and wrote the word, home. Then he pointed toward the sky. The middle girl's eyes brightened, and she touched her chest. She opened her mouth, and a soft sound came out, Zia. She pointed to herself and then made a gesture with her hand, moving it as if traveling far. Ravi wrote the name Zia in his notebook and nodded. He could tell this was her name. Ravi wrote another word, safe. He wanted to know if they had been in danger. Zia's eyes darkened slightly. She pointed at the other two girls, then made a quick gesture with her hands, as if showing someone taking them away. Her voice broke into soft words again, ta, ka, lo, bad. She repeated it slowly, and Ravi tried to understand. From her gestures and expression, he realized she was describing being captured or taken somewhere against their will. His heart ached for them. The smallest girl, who seemed shy but alert, touched Zia's shoulder gently. Then she made a soft sound, li, ra. She pointed to herself. Ravi wrote her name down. The third girl, taller and quiet, said a single word, Sira. Ravi nodded to all three names, Zia, Lyra, and Sira. He smiled gently. Even without understanding every word, he could sense the bond between them. They had survived together, supporting each other through hardship. Ravi wanted to help them feel safe. He reached into his bag and pulled out the clean clothes he had brought. He showed them to the girls, pointing to each piece and saying where. At first, they hesitated, unsure of his intention. But slowly, one by one, they accepted the clothes, putting them on carefully. Ravi watched, noticing the small details of their movements. They were cautious and graceful, moving with care as if every action mattered. Once the girls were dressed, Ravi tried to communicate more. He pointed at himself and said, friend. Then he pointed at them. Zia looked at him, and a faint smile appeared on her lips. She repeated the word slowly, friend. Lyra and Sira mimicked her. Ravi nodded, understanding that they now saw him as someone they could trust, at least a little. The girls then began to show him gestures about what had happened to them. Zia pointed to her chest again and made a motion with her hands like being pulled along. She showed that they had been captured and forced to leave their home. She pointed to Lyra and Sira, showing that they had escaped together. Ravi could see the fear in their eyes, the memory of danger and hunger that had haunted them. He understood that they had survived by being careful, by trusting each other, and by avoiding humans until now. Ravi listened quietly, his heart full of compassion. He did not interrupt. He knew it was important to let them express their story in their own way. He wrote words like safe, help, and friend in his notebook, showing them that they could trust him. Slowly, the girls began to relax. They sat closer to him, their glowing eyes reflecting a mix of caution and hope. As the night grew darker, Ravi thought about their lives. He realized that they had traveled far, escaping danger and hunger, and had survived without anyone's help. They had come to Earth seeking refuge, yet they had found no one until him. He felt a deep respect for their courage and resilience. These were not ordinary beings, they were intelligent, strong, and brave. Their small size did not make them weak. It only made their survival more remarkable. Ravi wanted to help them more than just with food. He decided he would teach them simple human words, help them understand his world, and create a safe place for them. He knew it would take time, patience, and care. But he felt ready for the challenge. He wanted to give them a sense of safety that they had never known before. The girls, sensing his intention, stayed close. Zia touched Ravi's hand briefly, a small gesture of trust. Lyra and Sira followed her example. Ravi smiled, understanding that trust was being built slowly, through kindness and patience. He did not push them. He let them take small steps, knowing that every step forward was a victory. Ravi also noticed small details that told him more about their past. Their hands had small scars, their clothes were worn and patched, and their eyes carried a weight of fear and longing. Yet, despite all that, they were still curious about the world around them. They studied him with careful interest, trying to understand his gestures, his words, and his intentions. Before leaving, Ravi wrote another note, tomorrow. Same place. Food and friend. He showed it to the girls. They looked at each other, then at him, and nodded. It was a silent agreement. They would wait for him again. Ravi smiled quietly, feeling a sense of purpose he had not felt in years. As he walked back home under the quiet city lights, Ravi reflected on the evening. He had learned their names, understood a part of their story, and gained their trust. He realized that helping them was no longer just a kind act, it was a responsibility. They depended on him now, and he was determined to keep them safe. Ravi also thought about the world outside the alley. Humans could be dangerous. There might be people who would not understand or accept these girls. He had to be careful, to protect them not just from hunger but from anyone who might harm them. The thought made him more determined. He could not abandon them. He had made a promise, even if it was unspoken, and he intended to keep it. When he reached home, Ravi prepared for the next day. He planned to bring more food, write more words in his notebook, and spend time helping the girls learn and feel safe. He knew it would be a long journey, but he felt ready. He had found a purpose greater than himself, a connection that reached beyond his world. Before going to sleep, Ravi looked out the window at the night sky. He imagined the girls looking at the same stars, far from their home, thinking about what they had lost and what they had survived. He whispered softly, "You are safe now. I will help you." And for the first time, he felt that this small human act of kindness could change the lives of 3 beings from another world. The following evening, Ravi walked to the alley with a determined yet gentle step. The city was quieter than usual, and the air felt cool against his face. He carried a slightly larger bag of food, along with a few extra bottles of water and some small gifts, a piece of fruit for each girl and a soft cloth he thought they could use as blankets. His heart was full of hope and a little nervousness. He did not know how the girls would react tonight. As he entered the alley, the three figures appeared from the shadows almost immediately. Their glowing eyes lit up when they saw him. They moved cautiously but did not hide. Ravi knelt and placed the bag on the ground, his gestures calm and careful. The girls approached, their curiosity stronger than their fear. This time, Ravi did something new. He spoke softly, pointing to the food and then to himself. Friend. Eat. Safe. The girls looked at each other, then back at him. Zia repeated the word friend in her soft voice, and Lyra and Sira echoed her. Ravi smiled, realizing that they were beginning to understand the meaning of his words. It was a small victory, but it felt significant. After eating, Ravi pulled out his notebook. He wrote, "Learn," and pointed to the girls. Zia tilted her head and made a gesture with her fingers, moving them in the air as if trying to write. Ravi nodded and held out the pen. Slowly, Zia traced lines on the paper, her movements careful and precise. Lyra followed, drawing simple shapes, and Sira watched them with quiet interest before trying herself. Ravi encouraged them gently, praising each small success. The girls were beginning to trust him more. They no longer flinched at sudden noises, and their movements were calmer. Ravi realized that their constant fear had not disappeared, but it had lessened. They were learning that humans could be kind, that not everyone would capture or hurt them. This was an important step, not only for their survival but for their hearts and minds. As Ravi taught them simple words, he noticed something remarkable. The girls were not just learning, they were observing, remembering, and experimenting. They repeated the words he said, sometimes softly, sometimes with a hesitant laugh when they mispronounced them. Ravi's heart warmed. He had expected caution and silence, but here was curiosity and even a hint of joy. Suddenly, a distant shout came from the street outside the alley. The girls froze instantly, their glowing eyes wide. Ravi stood slowly, holding his hands up. "It is okay. Safe," he said in a calm voice. The middle girl, Zia, stepped closer to him, her hand brushing against his arm as if seeking reassurance. Ravi felt a sense of pride. They were beginning to see him as someone they could trust. Ravi also noticed their small abilities. He had not paid much attention before, but he saw that their eyes sometimes glowed brighter when they were focused or cautious. One evening, Zia had tilted her head toward a small pile of debris, and it seemed to move slightly as if responding to her attention. Ravi did not fully understand it, but he realized that they had unusual skills, ones that could help them survive. He smiled quietly. These abilities made them special, but it was their courage and intelligence that impressed him most. After the moment of fear passed, Ravi sat down on a crate and gestured for the girls to join him. They moved closer, settling in a small circle. Ravi pulled out the notebook again and wrote, "Friend. Learn. Safe. Home." He pointed toward the sky as he wrote. The girls looked at each other, then back at him. They repeated the words slowly. Ravi nodded. He understood that trust was growing. They were beginning to feel that this human could be a friend, not a threat. Ravi also learned a little about their personalities. Zia, the middle girl, was careful but brave, always the first to try something new. Lyra, the smallest, was shy but observant, watching every movement before acting. Sira, the tallest, was quiet but strong, protective of the others and patient with their mistakes. Together, they formed a small, unbreakable team. Ravi realized that helping them meant understanding them as individuals as well as a group. As the night went on, Ravi decided to take another small risk. He led them a little further down the alley, showing them a quiet spot where the walls formed a small corner. It was safe from most noises, hidden from view, and slightly warmer than the open area where they had eaten. He gestured for them to sit. The girls hesitated but eventually followed. Ravi showed them the soft cloth he had brought, spreading it out as a small blanket. The girls touched it, their fingers brushing against the soft fabric, and a small smile appeared on Zia's face. Ravi sat with them, speaking softly, pointing at the sky, the ground, and the walls. He taught them new words: sky, earth, wall, safe. They repeated them carefully, sometimes laughing softly at the sounds. Ravi felt a quiet satisfaction. This simple act of sharing knowledge was strengthening their bond. It was not just about food anymore. It was about friendship, trust, and understanding. The alley was quiet now, except for the distant hum of the city. Ravi noticed the girls' eyes glancing at the street occasionally, alert but not fearful. He knew they were still cautious. Their lives had taught them to be careful, and he respected that. Yet they had taken the first steps toward feeling safe with him. That small progress was more important than anything else. Before leaving, Ravi wrote in his notebook, "Tomorrow. Same place. Safe. Friend." He showed it to the girls. They looked at each other and then back at him, nodding in agreement. It was a silent promise, a shared understanding. Ravi smiled, feeling that he had become a part of their small world, and they had become a part of his. As he walked back home, Ravi reflected on the evening. He had come to the alley expecting to feed the hungry and tired. Instead, he had built trust, shared knowledge, and strengthened the bond between them. He realized that every small action mattered. Every kind word, every gesture of patience, every piece of food was a step toward a greater connection. Ravi knew the road ahead would not be easy. The girls had survived in a dangerous world, and there would always be challenges. Yet he also knew that together, they could face anything. He had faith in their courage, their intelligence, and their ability to learn. And he had faith in the quiet power of kindness, the small human acts that could change the course of their lives. As he reached home, Ravi felt a quiet sense of purpose. He had begun as someone who left food for stray animals. Now, he was a friend, a protector, and a guide for 3 alien girls who had found safety in his care. The alley had become a place of trust and learning, a meeting point between worlds, and a space where hope could grow. Before falling asleep, Ravi looked at the stars outside his window. He imagined Zia, Lyra, and Cyril looking at the same sky, far from the world they once knew. He whispered softly, "Tomorrow, I will be there. You are safe. You are my friends." And for the first time, he felt that his small acts of kindness were creating a future filled with hope and trust for these 3 beings from another world. The next evening, Ravi walked toward the alley with a heavy but determined heart. The city lights flickered faintly, and the cool night air carried the usual sense of dust, food, and distant traffic. His mind was full of thoughts. He had grown to care deeply for Zia, Lyra, and Sira. Every day he spent with them brought joy, but it also brought a new responsibility. They were not just strangers anymore. They were beings he had promised to protect. As he reached the familiar corner, he saw the 3 girls waiting, their glowing eyes bright in the dim light. They stepped forward cautiously, but there was less fear than before. Ravi knelt down and placed the bag of food on the ground. The girls approached, moving carefully but confidently. Ravi noticed their subtle glances around the alley. They were alert as always, but now their trust in him gave them a small sense of calm. After they had eaten, Ravi sat on a nearby crate. He pulled out his notebook and wrote, "Safe," pointing at the girls. Zia looked at him and made a gesture, pointing to the street and then shaking her head. Ravi understood. They had seen danger in the city before, and even now, they were wary of others who might harm them. He nodded gently. "I will protect you," he whispered. Ravi realized he needed a plan. The alley was not safe. Anyone passing by could see them, and the girls could be in danger. He thought about hiding them somewhere nearby, a place where they could rest without fear. He had a small storage area near his home that was quiet and empty. It was not luxurious, but it was safe and hidden. Ravi decided he would take the risk. He would bring them there gradually, showing them that humans could be trusted. Before moving, Ravi tried to teach them more words. He pointed to himself and said, "Guide." Then he pointed at the alley and the path to the storage space. The girls watched carefully. Zia repeated the words slowly, then pointed at him. Lyra and Sira followed, trying the sound themselves. Ravi smiled. Communication was growing stronger, and trust was deepening. He waited until the street was almost empty. Then he gestured for the girls to follow him. At first, they hesitated, glancing at each other and then at him. Ravi spoke softly, "Safe. Follow." Slowly, one by one, they moved behind him. Their glowing eyes flickered with caution, but they did not run. Ravi felt a wave of pride. This was another small step toward trust, and every step mattered. The walk to his storage space was short but tense. The girls kept their eyes on the shadows, their ears alert for any sound. Ravi stayed close, careful not to frighten them. When they reached the door, he opened it slowly, pointing inside. The space was small, with clean floors and a few empty shelves. Ravi laid down the soft cloth he had brought. The girls stepped in, glancing around, touching the walls and floor. Their curiosity mixed with caution. Ravi knelt and pointed to the food. "Eat." "Safe," he said. The girls approached cautiously, picking up the food and drinking the water. After a few moments, Zia touched Ravi's hand lightly. He understood. She trusted him enough to stay inside this new place. Lyra and Sira mirrored her action, their small gestures of trust touching Ravi deeply. Once they had eaten, Ravi wanted to understand more about their past. He wrote in the notebook, "Danger," pointing to them. Zia's eyes darkened as she made gestures, pointing to an imaginary place and miming being tied and forced to move. Ravi watched carefully, piecing together their story. They had been captured by others, forced into work or travel, and had finally escaped. He could see the fear that had not left them, the cautiousness that had kept them alive. Ravi realized that trust would be their greatest challenge. They had survived by hiding, by avoiding humans, and by relying on each other. His presence was new, and they had to decide if they could believe he would not betray them. He spoke softly, "Friend. Protect." Zia repeated the words slowly, then touched Lyra and Sira, showing that they understood together. Ravi nodded. He felt their silent decision, they would try to trust him. As the night continued, Ravi spent time teaching them simple human words. He pointed to the floor, the walls, the door, and the sky, saying each word slowly and clearly. The girls repeated after him, their voices soft but determined. Each correct sound brought a small smile to Ravi's face. He realized that learning together was not just about words. It was about building a connection, a shared understanding that could help them survive in this world. Ravi also noticed their small abilities again. Zia moved her hands carefully, and the light in her eyes glimmered slightly as if sensing something invisible. Lyra did the same, while Sira watched attentively, ready to act if needed. Ravi did not fully understand their abilities, but he respected them. He knew these gifts had kept them alive, and he would not underestimate them. At one point, a sound came from the street outside. A group of people was walking past, laughing loudly. The girls froze, their bodies tense. Ravi held out his hand. "Safe," he said quietly. Slowly, Zia relaxed and motioned for the others to do the same. They realized that here, in this small space, they could be protected. Ravi's presence and calmness had given them courage to face a world that had always been dangerous. Before leaving, Ravi prepared a small plan for the next day. He would bring more food, teach more words, and continue building their trust. He knew it would take time, but he was ready. Their lives had been harsh, and patience was needed to help them feel fully safe. He also promised himself to always respect their pace, to never push them beyond what they were ready for. The girls huddled together on the soft cloth, their glowing eyes following Ravi as he moved toward the door. He whispered softly, "Tomorrow. Same place. Safe. Friend." They nodded, their trust growing slowly but steadily. Ravi felt a deep sense of responsibility and pride. He had begun as someone who left food for strays, and now he had become a guardian and friend to beings from another world. As he walked back through the quiet city streets, Ravi reflected on the evening. He understood that trust was fragile, built slowly over small actions, patience, and kindness. The girls' lives had been full of danger, and every step toward safety counted. He also realized that his role had changed. He was not just a helper, he was their protector and guide. Before going to sleep, Ravi looked at the stars. He imagined Zia, Lyra, and Sira resting in the small storage space, feeling a sense of safety for the first time in a long while. He whispered softly, "You are safe now. I will protect you." And in that quiet moment, Ravi understood the power of trust, friendship, and small human acts that could change the lives of beings far from home. The following evening, Ravi walked toward the alley with a feeling of quiet anticipation. Over the past week, he had come to know Zia, Lyra, and Sira. Their trust in him had grown, though it was still delicate. He carried food, water, and a few simple gifts, blankets, soft fruit, and small notebooks for them to practice writing words. His heart was full of hope and responsibility. Tonight, he planned to take another step. He would help them feel safe not just for an hour or two, but for longer, in a space that could be their own. As he reached the alley, the three girls appeared from the shadows. Their glowing eyes were bright, but their movements were calm and measured. Zia led the way, Lyra followed closely, and Sira brought up the rear, alert and careful. Ravi knelt and set the bag down, gesturing for them to eat first. The girls approached without hesitation this time, picking up the food and drinking water. Their trust in him had grown. It was clear in their eyes and in the way they moved around him with less fear than before. After they had eaten, Ravi knelt again and wrote in his notebook, "Safe. Here." He pointed to the alley, then toward the storage space he had shown them. Zia looked at him and made a small gesture, pointing toward the space and nodding. She repeated the word "safe" in her soft, glowing voice. Lyra and Sira echoed her. Ravi smiled, understanding that they were ready to accept a new home, a place where they could be protected and learn without fear. He gestured for them to follow, leading the way to the storage space. The girls moved behind him, quiet but attentive. Ravi opened the door and pointed inside. The space was small, warm, and clean. He had set out blankets and simple items to make it comfortable. The girls entered slowly, touching the walls and floors, testing the safety of this new environment. Their movements were cautious but relaxed, showing their growing trust in him. Once inside, Ravi knelt and wrote new words in the notebook: home, safe, friend. He showed each word carefully, pointing to himself and then to the space. Zia repeated the words slowly, Lyra and Sira followed, and Ravi nodded with a quiet smile. For the first time, it felt as though they understood fully that this place could be their refuge. They had survived on fear and caution for so long that even a small corner of safety was precious. Ravi spent the next hour teaching them more words and simple concepts. He pointed at the walls, the floor, the blankets, and the notebooks. He said the words slowly, repeating them, and encouraged the girls to mimic the sounds. Zia was quick to learn, repeating words with confidence. Lyra took longer, watching the others carefully, then attempting the words herself. Sira observed patiently, correcting herself silently when she made mistakes. Ravi realized that their intelligence and adaptability were remarkable. He felt proud to help them grow, to teach them about his world while respecting theirs. As they practiced, Ravi noticed the girls' small habits. Zia liked to arrange items neatly, Lyra observed every movement and gesture, and Sira acted protectively, always watching the others. He understood their personalities and strengths, realizing that each of them had played a role in keeping the group alive. Their survival had depended on teamwork, trust, and courage. Now, they were learning to trust a human as part of that team. Suddenly, a soft sound came from outside the space. Ravi and the girls froze for a moment. It was likely a passerby, but it reminded them of the dangers of the world beyond. Ravi held up his hands and whispered, "Safe." The girls relaxed, their glowing eyes meeting his. They had learned that with him, danger could be lessened, fear could be managed, and trust could grow. After a while, Ravi brought out small notebooks for the girls. He encouraged them to draw and write. Zia traced shapes and simple words carefully, smiling softly as she succeeded. Lyra watched first, then began tracing her own shapes, her small fingers moving precisely. Sira followed, drawing slowly but with determination. Ravi watched, feeling joy and hope. These small acts of learning were more than education, they were a bridge between their past struggles and a future filled with trust and growth. Ravi realized that he had changed as much as they had. He had come to the alley expecting only to feed the hungry, and instead he had become a guide, a protector, and a friend. His world had grown to include beings from another world, and in return, their lives had touched his deeply. The girls had taught him patience, care, and the power of small acts of kindness. As the night deepened, Ravi decided it was time to rest. He gestured for the girls to sit on the blankets he had spread out. They settled together, quiet and calm. Ravi sat nearby, watching them. He wrote one last note for the night: tomorrow. Learn. Safe. Friend. The girls looked at each other and then at him. They nodded. For the first time, Ravi felt that they were fully ready to rely on him, not just for food, but for protection, learning, and companionship. The evening passed with gentle calmness. Ravi spoke softly, pointing at words and objects, reinforcing trust and communication. The girls repeated words, mimicked gestures, and began to feel that this small space was their own. They had survived fear and hunger, but now they had hope. They had a place where they could learn, grow, and rest without worry. Before leaving for home, Ravi knelt and placed his hand gently near Zia's shoulder. She touched his hand in return, a silent gesture of gratitude and trust. Lyra and Sira mirrored her action. Ravi felt a warmth in his chest. He had begun with a simple act of feeding leftovers, and now he had become a part of their lives in a meaningful way. They had begun to trust him completely. Walking back through the quiet city streets, Ravi thought about the journey that had brought them together. The girls had been strangers from another world, lost and hungry, and he had found them in an alley. Through patience, care, and consistent kindness, he had built a bond with them. He realized that humanity could be a force for good, even in small, personal acts. At home, Ravi prepared for the next day. He planned more food, more words, and more moments to build trust. He knew the road ahead would have challenges, but he also knew that together, they could face anything. The girls had survived so much already, and now they had a human ally who cared deeply for their well-being. Before going to sleep, Ravi looked out the window at the stars. He imagined Zia, Lyra, and Sira resting in their small safe space, feeling secure for the first time in a long while. He whispered softly, "You are safe. You are my friends. Together, we will face everything." For the first time, he felt that a simple act of kindness had grown into a new beginning, not just for the girls, but for himself as well. The alley, once a place of hunger and fear, had become a home, a place of trust, learning, and hope. The girls had survived through courage, intelligence, and the bonds they shared with each other. Now, they had someone new, a human who cared, guided, and protected them. And Ravi, who had once only left food for stray animals, had discovered the power of friendship and trust that crossed worlds, species, and experiences. That night, the three alien girls slept quietly on their blankets, save for the first time. Ravi lay in his bed, dreaming of a future where kindness, patience, and understanding could create bridges between worlds. It was a new beginning, a story of humanity at its best, of courage, trust, and the simple acts that could change lives forever.